two Singaporeans have been dealt with under the country's Internal Security Act. Their cases are unrelated, but their self-radicalisation was triggered by the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. One of them, a 19-year-old student, was influenced by Composite Violent Extremism, or CoVE. It's also called salad bar extremism. He's the second person radicalised this way to be dealt with under the Act. Nadine Yeam explains.
CoVE, which the authorities had previously referred to as salad bar extremism, has been described as a form of violent extremism, where people subscribe to multiple and sometimes conflicting ideologies rather than an adhering unified view. The result is a personalized composite belief system which that person subscribes to justify the use of violence. Cyrus Dzulqarnain Al-Shahriar had subscribed to pro-Hamas, anti-LGBTQ and anti-Western beliefs. He was also influenced by Islamist accelerationism. This promotes the quick collapse of societal structures and political systems, often through the use of violence. Cyrus also subscribed to violent incel ideologies. Incel is short for involuntary celibate, referring to those unable to find a romantic or sexual partner despite the desire for one. It results in frustration and resentment, say towards women and society in general. The authorities say in 2024, he considered travelling to Gaza to join Hamas and take up arms against Israelis. But he lacked the resources to travel overseas and was fearful of engaging in physical violence. After joining an online Islamist extremist group, Cyrus was invited to a private chat. Following a request, he came here, the Esplanade area with the Marina Bay Sands in the background, to take photos for an e-publication authored by its members. He then pledged allegiance to the group by publicly posting the photos on his social media account. He then proceeded to join the group's digital jihad efforts by harassing users online deemed to be anti-Islam, posting fake news to defame them, and inciting violence against them. The second case involves 30-year-old customer service officer Tarmizi Taha, a staunch supporter of Hamas. Following its October 2023 attacks against Israel, he joined social media channels and was exposed to the group's propaganda. He was then inspired to travel to the Palestinian territories to join the group, but did not proceed further as he lacked financial resources. He had indicated he would be willing to undertake armed violence against Israel or conduct attacks in Singapore if instructed by Hamas. The Internal Security Department says these two cases demonstrate how grievance-fueled extremist narratives on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict continue to radicalize Singaporeans, even though it's been almost 3 years since the conflict's re-escalation. Tarmizi and Cyrus are the 7th and 8th Singaporeans dealt with under the ISA, whose radicalization was triggered or accelerated by the conflict since its re-escalation.
Analysts warn that Singapore could see more cases of radicalization by CoVE. They say widespread social media use has made it easier for people to pick up ideas from various movements and blend them into a personalized belief system that can be difficult to identify and counter. Sabrina Ng looks at the two recent cases.
Cyrus subscribed to a slew of ideological beliefs, including pro-Hamas, anti-LGBTQ and anti-Western beliefs. He was also influenced by Islamist accelerationism, which called for action to quicken societal collapse and to establish Islam as the global leading civilization. The 19-year-old also held incel, or involuntarily celibate beliefs, which has been linked to violence and misogyny against women.
Last September, a 14-year-old was picked up by the authorities in Singapore's first case of self-radicalisation through a mixed bag of ideologies. The boy was a firm supporter of ISIS and subscribed to anti-Semitic beliefs. Like Cyrus, the 14-year-old boy also identified himself as an incel. Analysts have been warning for years of the rise of a mixed, unstable or unclear ideology. One professor says simple ideologies like Islamist extremism or white supremacy could be countered or dispelled. But with a mixed bag, things just got a bit more difficult. Building other skill sets, apart from counter-ideology, is just as important.
Intellectual resilience against extremist norms and ideas, social resilience against the extremist calls for violence against members of other faith outgroups or communities, right? And psychological resilience, so that you are able to display critical thinking, right? And evaluate what you actually see online or read online, and compare with reality, and don't just rely on particular sources, and realize when you're in an echo chamber or going down rabbit holes.
Authorities say these cases underscore the growing diversity of violent extremist beliefs, fueling the domestic self-radicalization threat, especially among youths. The rise of CoVE also reflects a broader shift in the digital age, where one can easily consume and engage with a wide range of content from multiple platforms.
We are seeing the shifting of process of joining. In the past, you must be part of the group and the ideology must be coherent, but now no individual are no longer belong to that neat category of like a straightforward process of radicalization. And because of the existence of social media and and AI, the possibility of individual to be part of the violent ecosystem is faster. And sadly, we will be seeing more cases like this.
Dr. Nur Huda says family members play a vital intervention role for at-risk youth. He says it is only with their support that young people will not seek out a sense of community and identity in the wrong places.
And joining me now for more is Dr. Kumar Ramakrishna from the S. Rajaratnam School of International Studies. Dr. Ramakrishna, great to have you with us. First of all, why is this salad bar or mix and match extremism a cause for concern? In your interview with our reporter Sabrina earlier, you talked about white jihad, for example.
Angel, that's a great question. I mean, 25 years ago, when we first encountered Islamist extremism in the form of the Jamaah Islamiyah or JI network, they could be studied relatively easily because they had a manual called the Struggle Manual or PUBG, and they laid out what they wanted to achieve, right? So they wanted to use violence to create an Islamic caliphate within Southeast Asia. So those documents could be studied by the counter-extremism community, and the points at which their ideology deviated from the mainstream religion could be detected and could be countered, right? And similarly for far-right extremists, white supremacists, far-right extremists in the West, they would like to use force, use violence to engage in a race war to create a white ethno-state. So they were categorizable, right? But now, because of social media, widespread, with a click of a button on social media, one could just access a whole range of different ideas, including incel ideas, as your video clip shows. The possibility exists for what some people call a mashup, or mixing and matching ideas, tropes from different ideologies into one composite, personalized or customized ideology for particular individuals. So it becomes that harder and not so straightforward to sort of deconstruct the ideology and in order to deal with it. So it is more challenging in today's context.
It makes them less predictable in that way. So what are the real and tangible threats then to Singapore, both in the short and long term, of these people being self-radicalized by this particular composite violent extremism?
Well, in a way, we are still dealing with violent extremist ideologies. Ultimately, whatever the content is, whether we're talking about Islamist extremism or white supremacist ideas customized to a Southeast Asian or even Singaporean context. You mentioned white jihad. I mean, there's a good example of how far-right white supremacists actually borrowed ideas from the jihadists, the Islamist extremists, to say that, we also have our own kind of war, holy war, if you like, right? So ultimately, regardless of the precise ideological content, the challenge remains the same, because whatever your ideological stripe of these extremists, self-radicalized individuals, they want to engage in violence to achieve their goals, whatever the goal is. So the challenge remains the same at a physical threat level, but dealing with the underlying ideological conditions or the ideological elements of the threat, that has become more complicated. So, in a sense, the challenge remains the same, but deconstructing the ideological basis has become more complex, requiring more study.
So let's shift now to talking
Angela.
about how to combat these threats. You mentioned countering single ideology like Islamist extremism and also white supremacy, for example. But with this mixed bag, you also talked about building other resilient pillars. So how can we achieve this?
Yeah, it's a great question. Ultimately, if you will try to deal with the threat of composite violent extremism, or salad bar, as some would call it, extremism, in a a reactive way. I mean, it's like dealing with a multi-headed hydra. You hit one head of the hydra, something else will pop up somewhere else, and you hit that, and something else will pop up. Another head will pop up somewhere else. So, to me, the most sensible approach in the long run is to build resilience. So, I mean, I can think of resilience in at least three fashions, three ways. Number one, of course, intellectual resilience. I mean, to train, especially young people who are very susceptible to this kind of salad bar extremism, as we have seen, train young people to identify extremist norms. So that's intellectual resilience. But we have also seen in our research, right, that you also need to have a supportive social family context, because much of the research shows that many of the young people who are targeted by extremist groups of whatever stripe, they are male, vulnerable, socially isolated, and terminally online, as some scholars like to say, right? So they are male, vulnerable, socially isolated, and always online. So they need to get out, from being immersed online the whole day, to engage in normal, healthy relationships with their families, with their peers, and just to broaden their horizons. Because if they remain socially isolated, they are just that much more vulnerable. So that is what I would call the peer support, the family support, building emotional or psychological resilience. And intellectual resilience and emotional, psychological resilience leads to the third type of resilience, in my view, which is social resilience. Because if you have the inner qualities through strong families, strong peer support, and your ability to engage in critical thinking or digital literacy through intellectual resilience, you will know to identify and see that, when you encounter calls online for taking violent action against other faith groups, you know that is wrong, right? So that is, in a way, social resilience. So while we deal with the counter-ideological elements, which are still important, right, we need to, in my view, as an analyst, buttress that with attempts to also build different types of resilience in the target population.
Dr.
Angela.
Ramakrishna, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us. That was Dr. Kumar Ramakrishna from the S. Rajaratnam School of International Studies.